everybody, and welcome back to our YouTube channel, Twins with Wheels. I'm Kelly.
I'm Kristen.
So today we have a great guest who we're going to be talking with. Her name is Priscilla Hedlin, and she has some great information to give on parenting and being a parent with a disability. Yes. So she has a lot of great information. I think we should just get right to her.
Okay.
We'll talk a little bit with her, and then we'll be back after. So
Let's go.
okay. So hi, and we have a great guest here, so I'm going to go through something and then I'm going to introduce her to you. So for us, it's kind of a tough line to navigate when we as individuals that use wheelchairs try to highlight the things that people with disabilities accomplish. On one hand, we want to convey a message that we can do almost anything and anyone else can do. We may get accommodations or different ways of doing something, but we still can achieve what we need to achieve. On the other hand, by doing this type of show, we're saying, look at us and what we can do. Like, it's a big deal. And I don't want it to be that either. But, for us, it's been our goal to make people not see the wheelchair and see the person, just to see us. And the guest that we have today, I think, does that as well. Her name is Priscilla Hedlin, and she's the wheelchair mommy. So welcome, Priscilla.
Hi, thank you.
So Priscilla is a wheelchair, used to a manual wheelchair, and she's a mom, which I love to talk to other moms who have disabilities because it is different for us. I mean, we still go through everything pretty much the same as every other woman, but we do need to make certain changes and make, try to make sure that we can be the best parents that we can be. So, why don't you give us just a little background on your family and kind of how you became a mom?
Okay. I guess it helps to start kind of at the very beginning when I had my car crash. It was in 1999. I was 18. So, I was just beginning my adult life. I was a freshman in college. And I was L1, L2, so pretty low injury, but completely paralyzed from about the hips, belly button to hips down. But one of the things, everyone's always kind of a little thrown off by the one question I had from the doctors, because, she's 18, like, who thinks of that, or why is that, my priority? But the only question I had for the doctors wasn't, will I walk again? I knew that wasn't going to happen, but it was, will I still be able to have kids? That was the only thing I cared about.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, well, yeah, women in wheelchairs have babies all the time. So we don't see any reason why you can't. And after the doctors told me that, I knew everything was going to be okay. My life wouldn't look like I imagined it looking, the week before,
Right.
But it was still involved, having a family and being a mom, which is, really the only thing I've ever wanted to do in life is be a mom. So
That's so cute. It's funny. I mean, I remember when I was very little asking my mom, will I ever be able to be a mom? And she's like, honestly, honey, I don't know. I hope so. But, though that time they, you're younger than us. You were 18. I was getting married. At that time they really just didn't have the same things as we do now. But I felt the exact same way. That's always been my main goal.
Yeah, and when I was growing up, it was always, playing with my dolls, being a playing mom, and also like playing school. I would set up my animals or my friends, and I would be their teacher, which I've also become, I'm a substitute teacher now, now that all my kids are in school. So I've kind of had, both of my biggest dreams are what I do. So yeah. I guess, now on to how I became a mom. Fast forward a year and a half-ish later, I was on a dating site. So this is back when dating sites were brand new. Everyone was like, oh my God, this is crazy. You're going to die.
Yeah.
Now it's completely, I think it's more normal than meeting someone somewhere else.
Yes, definitely.
Way back then. Met my husband. He couldn't care less about the chair. It was just, part of me, but didn't really matter. He knew that I could do everything for myself. So, and even if I couldn't, he wouldn't have cared. But we fell in love. We got married a year and a half later, and the day after our second anniversary, we had our first baby. Okay.
So you have you have 3 children, correct?
3 kids.
Wow. What are their ages?
They are 9, 12, and will be 16 in December. So we actually celebrate our 18th wedding anniversary in 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, what kind of accommodations did you kind of make for yourself when you knew you were going to become a mom?
We talked about like different things, whether or not I would need a modified crib or not. There at the time there were a couple of plans online that we kind of looked at. My husband was going to modify it if we needed it, but we ended up finding a crib that lowered down enough, and I was able to lower it so I could reach in and out and get the baby out. So we never had to modify the crib.
Oh, that's great.
The first 2 or 3 months, the baby always slept in the room with us because I nursed, and nursing sessions were far more frequent in the first few months than they were later on. Once we moved the baby to the other room, most of the time my husband would get up and bring the baby to me just because he knew it took me longer to get up and transfer and go get the baby. And I would either be sitting up, leaning up against the bed feeding, or I'd have to crawl back into bed and then get up. He just, after doing that a few times, he was just like, forget it. He's like, it's quicker for me just to go get the baby for you, bring him to you, let you nurse. And he falls asleep like that.
My husband did the same thing. Yep.
He would basically like hand the baby to me, and he'd be snoring before we were in the latch. Yeah. And then when I was done, I would tap him, he'd go for the baby, and that would be our routine. Some nights, like if I knew he had like an early morning, or if he had a crazy project or whatever, I wouldn't wake him up, and I would just let the baby stay once he was in the bed. But that wasn't very often. But we found what worked for us. I know some women would be like, oh my God, my husband would never do that. I'm like, well, if my husband wouldn't have done it, I would have just gotten up. You just do what you have to do, and your spouses just pick up what they need to, and it's not necessarily different from an able-bodied woman or more work for an able-bodied woman. It's just what he's choosing to do to help you.
Yeah. So what kind of advice would you give a person in a wheelchair who's thinking of having children? Because I know when I tried to go online to find things when I was looking. So we were, starting looking to get pregnant in the year 2000. And there wasn't a lot out there. And even my doctor had said to me, he didn't advise that I do it. So,
you never went back there.
Yeah, I didn't go back. So that was kind of rough, and I just ignored it and, went and did it anyway. But I think it's important that women who are searching for disability and having children have a lot of different people to look at and talk to and hear from.
Right. Well, every injury is so different, too. Right. Like the reason for the injury, what your abilities and limitations are. So, so much of that is, needs to be considered. You need to have, an honest conversation with yourself and with your spouse. Just how much can I do? Just how much will I need you?
Yeah.
And are you able and willing to provide that without feeling like you're giving too much? For us, I was completely 100% independent of him. I could function day to day without my husband. Obviously, we didn't, don't want to, because once you're married, you have a spouse, you want them there with you. But, if he were to go on a business trip for a week or two, I don't need him around to do anything. And even then, I knew I could get by without him. And so we just had to, talk about it. I want to be a stay-at-home mom. So, we're not going to have to pay for daycare, outside care. And it really wasn't even a if, it was always a when for us. But I know, like I said, everyone's circumstances are different. I have a friend who just announced her pregnancy, and she's a quadriplegic, and she has said that her husband will have to help a lot more than she would, want. But it's, just
because she's a quadriplegic.
And but it's them as a couple, that's their business. If they still want to have a baby, and knowing that he's going to have to do more of the care than other dads would do, then that's not us to judge. That's their family.
Right.
There's lots of stay-at-home dads, so why can't he be a more involved parent? So
yeah, that's kind of my situation too. My husband, I have no tricep muscles at all, so I couldn't even pick up the baby. So he really had to do a lot of the, changing and dressing and bathing, and that was all on him. And he knew that, and he took it on, and we knew that before we even got married or got together. He's someone who plans ahead, and he thought of, everything before even deciding if he was going to say anything to me about being interested in me or not. And then, he did, knowing full well that it could keep going and what would happen. So, that's every person, and I think that's what people have to realize too, every person with a disability has they're so different.
Right. Different needs, different abilities, different, what worked for me may not work for someone else. I have another friend who's a paraplegic, and she's like, well, what did you do for a crib? And I was like, I just got parallel to it and kind of reached over and down. And she's like, girl, I'm like 5'1". I couldn't do that. And she's like, you must have a bigger torso, a taller torso than me. I'm like, well, yeah, I was, 5'4", 5'5", which is still kind of short for, on the shorter end for a woman. But me being 5'5" and her being 5 foot tall, she just doesn't have the height to be able to reach over and into the crib. And I was like, oh, well, I don't know. Because that's what I did. So, yeah.
I know, it's too bad there's not like a...
There is, I was watching on YouTube, there is somebody in England has twins who is, I believe, a paraplegic, and she had the crib that opened. Oh, yeah.
Well, I just had twins about 6 months ago. Her name is Danny something. I can't remember her last name. But she's a quad, and she just had twins.
What?
Now, she has some arm movement, some arm ability, but I don't know what crib she uses though. But no, yeah, there's definitely the cribs that open, and like I said, we thought about doing one of those, but we decided to see what I could do first, and it just worked out so well that we didn't bother.
Yeah, that's great.
If you had one that opened, your older one would have figured that out.
Oh, yeah.
Would have been out a lot sooner than he was.
Yeah. So, was there anything that you were worried about before that ended up not being a problem?
Not really. I'm the baby of 9, so I have a ton of older siblings. So when I was born, my oldest brother and his wife were having their first baby.
Oh, wow.
My mom was having her last while she had her first grandchild. So,
Wow.
so my entire life, I've been surrounded by my nieces and my nephews and babies. My sister had twins when I was 15, and she was a single mom. So, from 15 on, I helped, take care of these babies while she worked. And it's just taking care of babies has just always been what I've done.
Yeah.
Day and night and around the clock. So, I kind of had the opposite experience that some people have. Like, oh my gosh, when you have your own kids, it's going to be so different. It's going to be so much more difficult because you're with them 24/7. I'm like, yeah, but I was with these kids 24/7, and I wasn't their mom. So it wasn't as easy for me because they didn't really want me. They wanted mom.
Right.
So when I had my own kids and had them 24/7, for me, it was actually easy because I was finally the person the kid wanted all the time. So it worked out great. And, it's been an amazing experience.
Now, how soon did you teach them to crawl up on your lap?
I was pretty early.
Yeah.
It was just more, they're crawling around. So, it would just like be like bend over and kind of like walk their little hands up to my spokes, and then, lock so I don't move. And then, so I don't remember how old it was, but I was a walker for all my kids. They would push my wheelchair. They would stand behind me and push me at an early age. So, instead of having little plastic walkers, mommy was the walker.
And they adopt. It's just adopt. It's just, it's not different to them. It's normal.
They do. I can, at a very early age, I can sit my baby in my lap and wheel around with them without them going anywhere. But if I take a friend's baby, say 6, 7 months old, who I've only seen once or twice, I can't do that. I have to kind of do the one hand on them roll, one hand the alternate roll with someone else. I manage, but it's not, with my babies, it was just they just didn't move. They stayed where they were.
Yeah. What I used to do is because I didn't have a lot of strength in my arm, and I have a power chair, so I have one hand always, I have to use it. So I would put my seatbelt around both of us, and then they'd be fine. I mean, they wouldn't care less. They knew, they didn't try to wiggle out or anything, and it works great. And I felt very confident that they weren't going to fall or go anywhere. So it doesn't sound like you had any problems then being a parent. So it all worked out great for you.
It all worked out great. I had no problems.
How about your pregnancy?
My pregnancies were good. They were great. By the time of my first pregnancy, or all my pregnancies, I still had a metal rod from about my bra line to my tailbone. So I was permanently stiff like this. I couldn't bend my back at all or move my back very much. So I talked with the doctor, and if I were to lay down flat, I couldn't do a sit up. So I was worried that I wouldn't be able to push. Mm-hmm. So talked with the doctor, and he was just like, yeah, he's like, that could be a concern. He's like, but we could try, and then we could go into a C-section. He said if there was ever a medical reason to have a C-section, he's like, this would be one of those. He said, so we could just have a scheduled C-section. He's like, you know what to expect. And then there is no disappointment. Because, I considered, okay, let's just try, and then we go into the C-section. But what if I do that for 5, 6, 10 hours and I'm exhausted and sad? So anyway, so we just decided to schedule a C-section. He was born, we scheduled it for 1 week before his due date, which was the day after our anniversary. He joked, he's like, we can deliver on your anniversary if you want. I'm like, no. Let's keep it separate. So he was delivered 1 week before our anniversary, or one day after our anniversary, a week before his due date, sorry. And everything went great. No complications. I healed pretty well pretty quickly. He basically told me, he's like, as soon as you feel like it, get up and start doing everything you would normally do.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the equivalent to, getting able-bodied women to start walking. He's like,
Right.
start making any transfers you can. He's like, be careful, pay attention to your body. But so I started moving. My husband helped me while I was in the hospital. He would kind of lift and transfer me in the hospital just to kind of ease into things.
Yeah.
And then once we got home, he would help me here and there, but it was like, okay, let's see, like the easy transfer from the chair to the couch was pretty level. So that one was easy. But so yeah, I just started, I healed really quickly. My mom stayed with me for probably a week, and my husband didn't take any time off other than the delivery and like the first 2 or 3 days. But I was on my own after a week and a half.
Wow.
So everything was fine. My husband wasn't available if he needed to be, but he was just like, I don't want to take off unless I have to, or so that I have the time if something goes wrong.
Right.
Which nothing ever went wrong, so luckily. He would take off. He would take off for our doctor's appointments the first 2 or 3 months, just because the transferring into my vehicle was more painful than transfer to the couch or whatnot. With my second one, it was a little different. Everything still went great, but around week 30, 32, I just started feeling really bad. I felt like something was wrong, something was off. And it turns out I had a placental abruption.
Yeah.
And I guess the weeks leading up to it was just my body telling me that it was tugging, and he never checked to see. I mean, I'm guessing maybe he would have been able to see like a small tear starting if he, look, I don't know. Anyway, that's neither here nor there at this point. Everything worked out fine. But he did tell me at my 6-week checkup, he's like, I don't think you should ever get pregnant again. He's like, it wouldn't be safe. He's like, it could happen again. He's like, it could happen. It could be worse. But I'm hard-headed. I don't like to be told no. I don't like to be told how many. I didn't want someone telling me how many kids I could have. And I wasn't done it to. So we sought out a high-risk doctor, a periodontologist, and he reviewed my charts, and he's like, I have women who have repeat pregnancies after placental abruptions regularly. He said, there's no reason you can't have a normal, healthy pregnancy. He's like, we just have to be careful because it could happen again. He's like, we'll do regular checks. He said, if towards the end of the pregnancy, at any point you feel off again, he said, we will do a amniocentesis so we can start monitoring the baby's development so we can deliver as soon as we possibly safely can if you don't have them. So all through the pregnancy, everything was great. Around 35-ish weeks, I started feeling off again.
Wow.
I'm like, something's wrong. And my regular doctor was just like, you're just pregnant and you have 2 kids. He's like, go see the peri. He's like, go see your high-risk doctor. He's like, I think you're fine. Like, okay, fine. So, I saw my periodontologist, and he's like, just come on in. He's like, we'll do an amnio, and that can kind of tell us where the baby's lungs are, and, we'll be able to deliver once we know. So anyway, we did the amnio. That was on a Wednesday. They were supposed to have the results back on Friday, but their office closed before I got the results. So Saturday, I ended up in labor and delivery. We're just kind of monitoring me. They're like, you're definitely having some small contractions. Your dilating like a 2. We think you might just be in early labor. Like, it doesn't appear you're going to have another abruption. They're like, so we're just going to send you home. You'll see your doctor on Monday. So I had an appointment with my regular doctor on that Monday. So at this point, I'm like 6 weeks, I think. It's hard to remember like which kid was when. All kind of blurs together. So on the way to that doctor, I'm trying to get a hold of my periodontologist because I want to know what those results were. Like, what was the baby's, like, when they checked it, 35, 36 weeks, were his lungs ready? I get a call back, and he's like, your baby's lungs are perfect. they look full term. He's like, you can deliver whenever you want to. So it was all like, I still say they were very good pregnancies. I mean, these things could have happened to able-bodied women. But it was just that, I couldn't feel my body, so I couldn't 100% communicate to the doctor. And, maybe he should listen to that a little bit more. He should have been like, okay, let's just run the ultrasound and see if we can see anything going on.
Now, could you feel the babies move?
I did. I was able to feel the babies move. I could feel them, kicking and squirming, and especially, I couldn't feel them kicking my bladder. That I had no idea. I would just be like, oh.
That's not fun.
That's not. So, yeah. But, yeah, no, I felt, obviously, like, when she was like, how are you feeling right now? It wouldn't be one of those, like, stop talking, I'm feeling the pain. It would be like a stop talking, let me see what's going on. Mm-hmm. And then when I did that, then I could kind of feel, like, the tightness and the pulling, and it was just more of, like, a tightness. The contractions were. Like, if I put my hand on my stomach, I could feel, like, everything getting really, really hard. And then I would pay attention, like, okay, so that's what I'm feeling. I am kind of feeling that, like wringing out a washcloth, that tightness, but I'm not feeling the physical sharp pains from it.
Some women would think that would be a really good
Yeah, but it would have, if I had delivered, vaginally, it would have been, phenomenal deliveries. I would have basically had, the epidural, because it's just like sharp things. Like now if I had possibly ripped during delivery, I might have felt. So I don't know. Who knows?
And you said the epidural didn't work on you?
Sorry?
The epidural, it didn't work?
No, the epidural didn't work. Since the spinal cord was severed, I guess, I don't know, like, where they put it in. It was just below the injury, and there was just I don't know. They tried a couple of different times with the first pregnancy, and then they tried again on the second pregnancy, and it just...
Yeah, Kelly couldn't either. Yeah, I had to have general anesthesia too.
Yeah. So that was a little bit of a bummer, because it meant my husband couldn't be in the delivery room. But he was actually right outside the door.
Yeah, we worked out.
It worked, and he got to walk, and they had him, in the cover, the gown, and the cap, and everything. And immediately after the baby was born, they immediately brought the baby to the door, and my husband was able to walk him to the nursery with the nurse. Nice. So it was as close to being in the delivery room as possible, without actually being able to be in there.
That's nice. So I have one more question for you, because I've been looking at your blogging, and you have an Instagram, and you have a YouTube, and I've kind of been going through all those. We're going to link all those to the bottom of our page as well, so people can see that. But I saw that you went skydiving.
Yeah, 3 times actually.
Because that was just something I don't know if I could ever do. I could do it.
Okay, so that's kind of a story in and of itself too. So when my husband and I first met, he wanted me to go out to this skydiving place with him, because he had bought this skydiving package, and he was going to be jumping. I was like, that is stupid. You go do that on your own and call me later. I have no interest in that. So, like, we've been engaged for a few months at this point, and I was just like, like, when you die, I'm sorry, I don't know who I'll marry then. So, anyway, so it worked out fine. He didn't die. He came back, and, we really never talked about it after that. He expressed interest, like how much fun he had, how much he liked it. We watched his videos a couple of times, but it was really never anything. So fast forward, we've been married almost 10 years, and I'm sitting here thinking, oh, well, maybe for our 10th anniversary, I'll get him like some sort of a skydiving package again, or I didn't know all the details of what all's involved. I knew he wanted to be able to jump on his own, so I was going to figure out what to do for that. And anyway, as I'm contemplating this, one afternoon, he calls me, and he's like, so what would you think if I went and took a skydiving class and worked on getting my A license as my anniversary gift. I was like, I was just thinking the same thing, but I didn't know what it was called. So he went and he took all the classes and basically got his skydiving license so he could jump on his own. And so during this time, he spent a lot of time at what they call the drop zone. And there's one about an hour from us. So sometimes on the weekends, the kids and I would go up there and we would just spend the day or the Saturday at the drop zone with my husband while he was taking classes or doing the jumps. He had to get so many coach jumps in and all that. So, I got to watch people. So as I'm sitting there, I just see woman after woman, man after man walk to the plane with this look of fear in their eyes, like, oh my God, what did I just get myself into? And they all came down with this, like the best thing that's ever happened to me look on their face. So I'm like, maybe it's not so bad. So one of the tandem instructors, he would come and talk to me sometimes in the evenings, and he's like, so when are you getting up there? I'm like, I'm never getting up there. He's like, no, I'm getting you up there. I'm like, no, you're not. So my husband was like, oh, that would be a great idea. So after a couple of months of my husband kind of like planting little seeds and this tandem instructor planting seeds and he was like, I have this idea for these pants where we could strap your legs so your legs wouldn't even drag and he's like, and I'm like 6'4", so I could probably just completely support you when we land, because part of the problem was like when you're landing, like what if you hit the ground? And
well, that's yeah.
I would see people, slide in and he was a good foot taller than me. He's like, I could completely hold your weight up while we waited for your chair. He's like, I could take the brunt if he'd had like 15,000 jumps. So this guy was really good and really experienced. So I'm like, okay, I guess I could do that. So our first jump, we didn't have the pants. So when he pulled the chute, my legs did go up quite a bit in the air, but I wasn't too worried about that part. But we did have this little strap across my knees. So when we got under canopy, I was able to clip it to my chest. So my knees were already in an up like an upright position like this.
Yeah.
So when we landed, my legs were already up. So if he had to, fall, I was already sitting as opposed to standing.
Right.
So we did that, and then like 2 or 3 days later, we were back up there for something, and he's like, I have something I want to try. Do you want to go up with me again? So I went up like 3 days later with him again, and then I went like a year later with a friend. And then the guy that I jumped with moved to Alaska.
Oh.
So, yeah, we don't jump. I haven't jumped since then because I'm not jumping with anybody else.
Yeah. Well, Priscilla, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We had a great conversation with you. And I hope our viewers enjoyed it as well.
I'm sure they did.
So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. I had a lot of fun.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Welcome back. I'm so going skydiving.
No.
Oh, I so am.
I don't think that's... Okay. And it's funny, she's scared of petrified of going skiing, and I think that's so much easier than going to skydiving, right? Even though I didn't love skiing, it wasn't, that scary as jumping out of a moving plane. I'm so doing it. She's such a great role model, I think, for people with disabilities.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Parents, and I mean, she is just great. She's independent. She's just going out there living her life, and that's what you want to highlight on this trail. So she was a great guest. So we want to thank her for joining us. And we will be back next week with a new...
What are we doing? Do we know yet?
No, we'll see.
Okay.
So
maybe we can do it when I go skydiving.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us. Remember, like, share, and subscribe. And please, I'm so tired of having to say this because I really want it to be over, but it's not over yet. So we really need to make sure that you're following your state's mandated pandemic rulings. So guidelines. That's I always say that, right? Guidelines. Wear your masks. Social distancing. And stay at home. Yeah. Unfortunately, that we're just staying at home and spending time with your close group knit family.
And watch us on YouTube.
There you go.
And please just subscribe because I'm so tired of hearing her say.
Thanks, everybody. See you later.